Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by David Wolman, and only David Wolman today, just a two-man show. Devin Hassan feeling a little under the weather. David, how are you doing, man? How was your weekend?
It was pretty good. Some interesting baseball on Saturday at Azle, and then just went to the girlfriend's parents' house on Sunday to celebrate some Mother's Day. So a little bit of everything on the weekend. So I can't complain.
Nice little festive weekend.
Yeah.
On my end, I just got absolutely ravaged by allergies. I don't know. Do you have allergies, David? Do you have to worry about this every spring?
Not really.
Lucky you're a fortunate man. It was a 2 days worth of just itchy eyes and wheezing and sneezing and sniffling. It's for anybody who has allergies listening to this. You have a sympathizer in me. I feel your pain. It is not a fun time of year, and it felt like they hit me harder than usual this year. I don't know why that is, but yeah, it was just a groggy weekend. But
is
nevertheless,
it just like the constant up and down of the temperatures, you think, or?
I honestly don't know, to be honest. I just know that every spring it's just, they'll be sitting covering a baseball game, and just because you'll be outdoors and whatnot, and just the pollen is my kryptonite.
Yeah.
And it'll just be hell trying to fight through that without just, itching my eyes. I'll go talk to a coach and I got one eye that's like all red from it's a little watery and whatnot. I look like hell. But nevertheless though, we did have a lot of baseball and softball on the plate last week to power through, and man, let's kind of pick up where we left off last week and talk a little playoff stick and ball, because we are let's see. So the baseball playoffs, the first round is in the books. The bi-district round wrapped up over the weekend, and softball wrapped up its second round. I kind of like the way that this is structured. With you get a little time to breathe in between these series. You get everything's wrapped up Thursday through Saturday, then you got a few days to just settle down and then just kind of build up into the next round instead of having to cram two series into a week like with all the other sports.
Yep.
So let's see. Let's talk a little baseball. Let's see. Yeah, let's go over just some of the takeaways from that first round within our coverage area. And I'm going to start in a pretty familiar starting point, and that is the bi-district series between 5-6A and 6-6A. So after 5-6A, kind of put it on them a little bit in softball in that first round. Would 6-6A did they have anything left in the tank? Apparently so. It was a nice little bounce back for District 6-6A as they were able to win 3 of the 4 bi-district series over 5-6A to advance. And kind of similar to the story over in softball with 5-6A, a lot of this was because of some really strong pitching efforts between the teams that advanced. You had Marcus, Capel getting out, the top 2 teams in 6-6A, and then the upset of the lot, and that was the number 4 seed Plano taking down the 5-6A champion McKinney Boyd. Mm-hmm. So we can, you were at game 1 of that Capel Guyer series, right?
I was. Okay,
so you can rehash some of that. But that was while you were doing that, I did see game 1 of that Plano Boyd series, and it featured one of the more unorthodox ways to win a baseball game that I can recall. I've never seen this before in person, and I'm sure it's happened plenty of times because errors happen in baseball. But this was the rare bases loaded, bases clearing throwing error on so it was a 1-1 tie, I believe, in the 5th inning, and then Plano was able to load up the bases, and then Boyd botches a pickoff attempt at second base, and the ball rolls into the outfield, and it has got so much velocity behind it that it eludes the outfield altogether. So it rolls back all the way near the warning track, and that allows Plano to clear all 3 bases and score 3 runs just like that to turn a 1-1 tie into a 4-1, eventually a 4-1 victory. Didn't even need to swing the bat to do so.
No.
One of those weird sequences that you just don't see all too often. That was otherwise a really, really competitive game, that error notwithstanding. So a tough one for Boyd, given the role that they had been on, to immediately fall down 0-1 in the series. But that's kind of been par for the course. If you recall last week, bringing up their big playoff run from 2019, I believe it was every single round from the area round through the regional finals, they were able to win 4 consecutive best-of-3 series despite losing game 1. So, in a sense, this is familiar territory. Mm-hmm. But turned out not to be the case because they went ahead and then lost 3-1 to Plano in Game 2. And this one, a little bit different, though. They did pounce for 3 runs right at the start of the game. They got to Ben Abelt, which is impressive considering that Abelt just was absolutely dominant in district play. But Plano was able to score 3 runs in the first inning on RBIs by Troy Piesker and Ashton Kassan, and they just kind of nursed the lead the rest of the way. Boyd only had 2 hits in Game 2, and their bats they just couldn't string much together. Even in that Game 1, they had, I believe, their first 3 hits in that game all resulted in extra bases, but they just could not string together a stretch and get the cliched timely hit to make anything of it. So, but yes, it was a strong series for Plano's pitching. The trio of Blake Van Cleve, Kyle Boddy, and Jacob Percarum, a combined ERA of 1.29 and 24 strikeouts over 2 games against the District 5 6A champions. Van Cleve and Boddy, both first-year starters as far as pitchers go for Plano. And then Percarum, he's a kid who actually got some starts under his belt all the way back as a sophomore, I believe. And then he settled into this role as just being this dead-eyed, lights-out closer for them. At the times that I've seen him this season, he's just been absolutely dealing. And there was not a whole lot of suspense in the bottom of the 7th with McKinney Boyd up to bat, as Percarum was able to strike out the side in Game 1 and get that 4-1 victory. So a nice little feather in the cap for Plano under first-year head coach Rick Kramer as they're headed to the second round for the first time since 2014. It's been a hot minute since Plano's won a playoff series. Now they've been in the playoffs, pretty steadily over that stretch, but they would always run into a powerhouse like Keller or South Lake Carroll. So nice to see them finally get over that hump and get to the second round. And with Marcus, they were able to take care of Allen in 2 games, and kind of like Plano and Boyd, the story of this one was just the pitching. Marcus, that's how they built their run there to close out district on I don't know what their winning streak is up to right now. It's in the double digits, though, as they've been on an absolute tear. But the combo of Tate Evans and Tyler Schott, no earned runs over the course of that series against Allen, only 6 hits allowed, 18 total strikeouts between those 2 pitchers to just 2 walks. So that's
pretty impressive.
That's going to win you some baseball games. So Marcus, they're top 5 in the state, I believe, and that's a program that figures to hang around for a little bit, as this is just par for the course for that program. So some strong starts to the postseason for Marcus and Plano, and you saw Capel get off on a positive note against Guyer. So what was your takeaway there?
Will Rodman.
Okay, there you go.
No, we stick with pitching. You talk about pitching, I'm going to stick with pitching right here.
Let's go. Consistency.
Yes. Coming into this game, Will Rodman, one of their senior pitchers, in his 2 previous outings, he didn't allow a run, and both games were complete game shutouts.
Okay.
So could he make it 3 in a row? And yep, he did. Pitched a complete game, led Capel to 2-0 victory over Denton Guyer in Game 1, and he had 12 strikeouts in this game. And Guyer did have some base runners, in several of the innings, but couldn't get it. Whenever Guyer had a base runner on, it seems like Rodman, it's bared down and, was even better. Mm-hmm. So, he picks up his 3rd straight complete game victory right there. And then, when you get that kind of performance, like you just need 1 or 2 runs and you're good. So, their first hit, it's not a surprise who does. It's their senior Chayton Krause. Has had a fantastic year. He hits. I thought it was a home run whenever I saw it, but it was just a long RBI single off the outfield wall.
Okay.
So, but still, you're driving a run. It's 1-0, and then later in the game, sophomore catcher Bradley Castillo. He's been an amazing whole year. He had a triple to drive in Walker Polk, the Baylor commit, who actually led off the 6th inning with a triple of his own, and it's 2-0. That's all the offense that you need right there. Mm-hmm. So Capel took a 1-0 series lead on their home field, and then you get to Game 2 the following day at Denton Guyer, and then you have Krause on the mound, who's been sensational this year as well too. And that's been the whole story with this Capel team, is like they rely on their pitching and they just scratch a few timely hits whenever they need to win these games. Mm-hmm. So. In Game 2, Capel gets up 4-0, and they went on to win this game 8-4. And while I'm reading this game, I'm following Reese Waddell from the Denton Record Chronicle, who's at the game, and it seems like Guyer's coach wasn't too happy about a couple of calls. Okay. In this series, he was on the field for over a minute, in the second game, because he thought a ball was foul when it actually was fair. So he was out there, and then. That was kind of early in the game when Capel got the 4-0 lead, and where game one was more of a pitcher's duel. This one, Capel, they got the offense going in this game. Tony Vernars, he goes 2 for 3, drives in 4 runs. Castillo, like I said, who had that triple in that first game, he goes 2 for 3 in this game, and they double up Guyer to sweep the best of 3 series right there, and now they're on to the area round, and it's going to get a little bit tougher from here. Mm-hmm. Waiting for Capel in the second round. It's going to be Dallas Jesuit.
Okay,
who's only 32-4 on the season.
That's a quality program at Jesuit.
Yeah, no question. Jesuit just absolutely dominated Arlington in that first round series out there. They won game 1 14-1. And then the second game was 14-0 right there. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, Capel's definitely a step up from Arlington right there. So this is going to be a fantastic series. This is a series I was kind of hoping that might be later down in the road in the playoffs, just given the quality of these two teams out there. But unfortunately, we get it here in the area round. So, unfortunately, it's going to whoever loses, it's going to be just because you had a tough draw out there. Mm-hmm. So, and one thing you kind of notice about this is just the schedule of this series as well, too. Obviously, we know we have a home and away. Each team gets a home game, and then you have a game 3 if necessary. And game 1's going to be at Jesuit. Game 2 is at Friday. But guess where game 3 of this series is going to be if necessary?
There's a lot of places out there. I don't think I could guess just one.
Lake Dallas.
Okay, there you go. I would not have guessed Lake Dallas.
Yeah, neither did I.
There's a lot of high schools in Texas. So.
No. It's kind of interesting, though, because Ryan Howard, the Capel coached there for 3 years.
There you go.
And then he led Lake Dallas to their best postseason run over there in 2019 when they went to the regional semifinals.
I wonder if it was his recommendation.
Yeah. Just a hint right there. So, so obviously this is, Capel's, first postseason run with Howard at the helm right there. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if they get to game 3 right there, he's going to kind of, rub some luck there in the dugout and, hopefully it springs Lake Capel to the series win right there.
That's if they're able to get it that far, that is.
If it goes that far, obviously they'd rather take care of business in 2 games right there. They'd rather do it on their home field. But I'm just in case. In case.
Whereas you had pitching was kind of the story in those 3 series within these bi-district matchups. A quick note on the 4th one, Prosper, the alone team from 5-6A to advance. Offense was the name of the game for Prosper as the Bats woke up in a big way for the state-ranked Eagles. They were able to sweep their way through Hebron, and they did so by outscoring the Hawks by a combined margin of 20-3. This Prosper team, again, they've been strong for most of the season. They had a double-digit win streak during that extended into district play, but they did run into that little slip up there late in the season with 4 straight losses where they scored just 5 runs total over that stretch. So this looking like a team that's starting to maybe find its sea legs a bit more and look like the team that was just wrecking shop earlier in the season. It's on Friday in Game 2 of that series. That was the one I was at. It all started at the top of the lineup with Chase Penley, their Baylor commit. He just is as steady as it gets. He's been in a nice groove from the plate, and that was once again the case on Friday. He went 4 of 5 with 5 RBIs, including a 3-run home run that really kind of blew this game open before they eventually cruised to a 10-1 victory. It's the first time since early March in tournament season that Prosper has scored double-digit runs in back-to-back games. So Prosper looking the part as far as a team that is could be poised to make another strong run in the postseason. So those are some notes from the bi-district series between 5-6A and 6-6A. So then moving on over to, we can talk a little bit about Class 5A and one of the bi-district series between 10-5A and 9-5A.
Sure.
Because we had, we had some local representation out there, of course. You had pretty competitive, you almost had I don't want to say almost, it was still a 2-game sweep, but it was a competitive sweep between number 1, Frisco Wakeland, the district champion out of 9-5A, and then number 4, McKinney North. Both of their games decided by just 1 run, and you had some heroics there by the Wolverines in Game 2. 2 to get I believe, just a 3-2 victory. There were just a combined 4 hits in Game 2 of this series. Pitching was a pretty consistent theme for both of these teams. 2 very, very low-scoring games. In that Game 2, though, it was ultimately the combination of Connor Cassano and Luke Robertson, who had back-to-back hits that led to 2 runs in the top of the 7th, and that eventually gave them a 3-2 victory. A pretty tough sequence, though, for McKinney North. Looked like the Bulldogs might have a shot at tying this series up. They were actually able to take a 2-1 lead in the bottom of the 6th inning on a 2-run home run by Casey Workman, but it just wasn't meant to be. Wolverines got the last laugh there in the 7th inning. Again, really, really strong pitching series. Wakeland's 2 pitchers, Luke Robertson, Robert Fortenberry, they hold North to just 2 hits for the entire series. So, it was some fine work on the mound by the 2 Wolverine co-aces. And then, McKinney North's, Dylan Rogers, Casey Workman, I mean, obviously they were plenty game as well, largely holding the district champions in check, but just didn't have enough offense to match, though, in a otherwise low-scoring series. The Colony was able to get out of the first round in this series against Frisco Lone Stars. So, David, just talk a bit about the Cougars and them building off of that district championship by getting to the second round.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Wakeland series. It's a low-scoring affair. Both of these games right there. The Cougars won Game 1 3-2, and then the next day they won 4-1 to sweep the series right there. So they're moving on to the area round for the second time in program history, and the first time that they won a playoff series was in 2018 against these same Rangers right here. So obviously in this series right here, it starts with their pitching right here. Ryan Scott, their senior, who's committed to Dallas Baptist University. He throws a complete game in Game 1 right there. He gets around even like a situation in the 7th inning and allows them to win right there. And then, not only like pitching, but he also gets the job done with his bat as well too. In the second game, he went 3 for 3, including a 3-run home run. That really, that was all that they really needed right there. So they went up 3-3. So they went up 3-0 in that game, and then that's all they needed for another senior, Devin Reyna, who threw the second straight complete game of this series for the Colony, and he even threw out a runner on home plate on a suicide squeeze right there. So that holds off a threat for the Rangers right there, and so and then also the Colony they get some timely hits, and Christian Matthews adds an RBI single later in the game, and then there you go. They're on to the second round, and in the second round they're going to get Woodrow Wilson right here. So in all 3 games they're actually going to be played in Irving. First game is going to be Thursday at Irving High School, and then games 2 and 3, if necessary, going to play at Irving MacArthur. And Woodrow Wilson, they're coming off a sweep of their Dallas ISD foe Sunset, 13-2, and they squeeze out a 8-7 win in Game 7. So, in Game 2, I should say. So, obviously, it's that's going to be the area round matchup for you. But obviously, just based on on the Colony's team right here, I think they got a pretty good matchup, and if they win this series, they can set up a third round series regional quarterfinal against Wakeland.
You had a nice little dramatic end to the bi-district series between Lovejoy and Frisco Reedy. This one went 3 games, so this they were able to push this one the distance. It was the top third of the order that came through though for Lovejoy in Game 3 to get a 3-2 victory in advance. Colby Branch with a single, Trent Rucker with a double, and then Aiden Smith polishes off the rally with a walk-off single, and just like that, Lovejoy on to the area round, getting that timely hitting. Hitting is contagious, as some teams will tell you. Let's see, Frisco Reedy though, again, a strong effort by the 3 seed out of 9-5A to push a Lovejoy team that was state ranked. I don't know if they still are, but they were state ranked earlier in the season for sure. To push them the distance, Reedy was able to win Game 2 the night before, 5-4, and then went total kitchen sink in Game 3, which you'll see teams sometimes do. They used 5 different pitchers in that game. No one threw more than 33 pitches for the Lions, but Lovejoy though able to get the better end of that exchange and punch their ticket to the second round. Then I had let's see. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about your big day in Azle. You were a busy guy out in Azle, as you had the dreaded. So you're going out. The series might close out, but nope. You're stuck. Like, how long were you out there for?
At least 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, it was a busy day for you out in Azle. You went that series. It was the classic Game 2, and then if necessary, Game 3 takes place right afterwards. And Game 3 took place right afterwards as Lake Dallas was able to push Azle to the brink, but not far enough, apparently.
Yeah. Well, this was it was a competitive game. It was 3-3 in the Game 3. Zach Darden, who actually picked up the victory in Game 2 right there, the game that Lake Dallas won 9-5. He had a 2-run hit over there to get Lake Dallas tied with Azle in Game 3. So I mean at that point anything's possible. But you got to give credit to Azle's bullpen. They held Lake Dallas scoreless for the last 4 innings, and Lake Dallas did have some base runners there in the 5th inning and then 2 more in the 7th inning, but they just couldn't do anything with it. So unfortunately, Lake Dallas' season comes to an end. But I mean, despite the loss, it was a much better showing for them at Azle than what we saw Friday on their home field right there.
It was a tough time in Game 1.
It was a really tough time. Friday Game 1, it was a 9-1 loss. Azle got out to a 9-0 lead, not a 5-0 lead early in the game. Lake Dallas had only 4 hits in the game. They struck out 11 times. Mm-hmm. So after that, they had to win 2 straight games, and probably the best thing that happened to them is they had a short turnaround in this series. So less than 24 hours later, you're back at Azle, and wow, after like I said, they only had 4 hits in the first game, and then Game 2 they come out and have 16 hits. Mm-hmm. So and you had 6 different players with at least 2 hits, 3 each by Will McConnell and Elijah Howard. So just a great turnaround, and it all got started on a quote-unquote inside-the-park home run, where it's actually a double and a 2-base error. Brendan Sorsby, in the 2nd inning, he hits a double into right field, and then he gets to second base, and then the throw goes into the Lake Dallas dugout, so then he's awarded 2 bases from the umpire. So that's, they tie the game up 1-0, and then Lake Dallas, just cruises from there. And then in that game, you also get, a great pitching performance by Darden. He allowed 4 runs, but he struck out 8, and, he held off a lot of, Azle, scoring opportunities whenever they pose some threats. So great opportunity by him. And then they get to Game 3, it was a very competitive game. And then, like I said, unfortunately, they just couldn't, score any runs in the last 4 innings. But, I mean, much better performance. And obviously, with that effort on the second game, you got to, like what you see from Lake Dallas, and especially heading forward with the second-year head coach Chris Haney, who I think is going to do some great things with that program.
I had one final note on baseball before we can move on to softball, and this was actually one that you walked in here earlier and apprised me of. So I'd say, with all due respect to every other playoff baseball game that took place around the state, you might have had the craziest one over in Taps between McKinney Christian and Emory Weiner, because this is the type of outcome you do not see games quite like this all too often.
No.
This was a game where McKinney Christian, in the state quarterfinals, mind you, trailed 14-1. 14-1.
That seems like an improbable.
It's pretty close, but never say never, David.
Nope.
Let's see. So they were able to then score 14 unanswered runs over the final 4 innings for a 15-14 comeback victory for the ages, as they're now bound for the state tournament for the first time in program history. Just a few notes from this game, because again, you wrap your brain around that, and a team erasing a 13-run deficit and winning a game of that caliber. There's obviously a lot of insanity that went into it as far as just the kinds of numbers that came from that. There were a combined 30 hits, 29 runs, obviously. There were 5 half innings with at least 3 runs scored. They used 8 total pitchers in this game, and the teams combined to throw 321 pitches. Hopefully nobody was on deadline having to cover this game.
Yeah.
It was that game was a bit of a marathon. But McKinney Christian had a very, very productive night from the plate. They had 19 hits in this game. 17 of them came over the final 4 innings. So they just caught fire and just never let up. They had 7 players that had 2 hits or more. Ryan Radke, Hudson Cross, Cooper Roach all had 3 hits apiece. McKinney Christian had 8 doubles in this game. 8 doubles and a home run by Cooper Roach. So again, 9 of their 19 hits went for extra bases, and then Roach is actually the one who was able to then seal the walk-off. He had a walk-off RBI single in the bottom of the seventh. I believe McKinney Christian put 3 runners on base right beforehand with no out, so you could just tell that the levee had in fact broken for Emery Weiner. And just what a victory for McKinney Christian as they're able to punch their first ever trip to the state semifinals in the kind of fashion that I'm sure will not be forgotten by folks within that program anytime soon. So congrats to McKinney Christian on your historic comeback win. And now we can move on to softball. Talk a little bit of second round action over in softball. The teams that we had still hanging around over in that bracket. And we know the way that, playoff brackets traditionally work. You expect that with each round, it's supposed to get harder, right? That's how playoff brackets traditionally work. Obviously, high school sports is not always that simple. A lot of it's geography-based as far as the teams you see in the first round versus the ones you see in the second round. So I say that to say this. You had I was curious to see what kind of, what the comparison would be for the teams in 5-6A and 6-6A after you had some really just low-scoring defensive grinders there in the first round, some really hard-fought series. How would the teams that got through that first round gauntlet, how would that carry over to the second round? Would it get tougher or would it get easier? They proceeded to the quartet of Allen, Prosper, Denton Guyer, and Flower Mound proceeded to outscore their 4 second-round opponents 70-3. And, yes, proceeded to absolutely just hammer their way into the regional quarterfinals. You had a couple one-game series for Prosper and Allen. They did not get tripped up there. Flower Mound and Guyer were able to cruise quite handily as well. And all 4 teams able to punch their ticket to the third round. And that sets up a couple big-time regional quarterfinals now between, the matchups are Allen versus Flower Mound and Prosper versus Denton Guyer. I believe those are at least as of the end of the regular season, those were the top 4 ranked teams in the DFW Fast Pitch Area Poll in 6A. So, makes those rankings look pretty accurate. If this is what you're getting up to this point. So, these are 2 very, very high quality series. You're going to have some outstanding pitching on display in these matchups. With Allen and Flower Mound, they're both district champions. They did play actually previously on February 23rd in a non-district game. Flower Mound won that one 6-3. It was a big game for Landry Harris, their star sophomore pitcher. She only allowed 1 hit and struck out 12. So we'll see if the Allen offense has a little bit more in store for her over the course of this series. Allen, man, I forgot this note last week. Allen was able to win a playoff series last week for the first time since 2005. Very, very cool note for Allen. They're in the third round now for the first time since 2004, so obviously a nice little feather in the cap for their first-year head coach, Kathy Shuttle. So whereas you'll have a meeting between 2 teams that don't have a ton of familiarity. Prosper and Guyer, obviously, though, that is a very, very familiar matchup for those two. They're obviously both from the same district over in 5-6A. They split the district championship alongside Allen as part of that 3-way tie for first place. And they did so by splitting the regular season series against one another. So Prosper and Guyer split their 2 meetings. Guyer won round 1, 7-5. Prosper a bit more emphatic in round 2, 11-1. There are no secrets in this series, given the familiarity between these 2 programs. If you want to just look for trends that might be harbingers of things to come, defense was actually very critical in this. In who had the momentum in this series. In the first meeting, the one that Guyer won, Prosper committed 4 errors in that game, and in the meeting that Prosper won, Guyer committed 3 errors in that. So there you go. Whoever's more efficient in the field has typically got a bit of an inside track, at least judging on those first 2 matchups. I am curious to see how Prosper approaches this matchup just from a pitching standpoint, whereas Allen, Guyer, Flower Mound, they all have their go-to ace and whatnot that they can rely on. Allen with Alexis Telford, Guyer with Rancy Willis, and then Flower Mound, Landry Harris, although Flower Mound they got some depth and they can throw a couple others in there as well. But Prosper, they can mix up either Abby Beasley or Alyssa Griffin into the equation. Now, Griffin was the one who through the entirety of their blowout win over Guyer in Game 2. It was a complete game victory. They did use both of them in that first game, so I'm curious to see how they approach, whether they stick with the hot hand, at least in that matchup, and ride with Griffin, or if they decide to mix them up a little bit. Who knows? We'll see. But nevertheless, they'll Prosper rolling into this third round, as they have now won 10 in a row, dating back to that early district loss to Allen. So Prosper in good form. We'll see what is in store. But yes, two very, very high-quality third-round matchups between a couple teams from 5-6A and 6-6A. Let's see, and you could kind of frame the same narrative for 9-5A and 10-5A as far as, two districts that really kind of just threw it down there in the first round, and then had a bit of a bit of an easier time in the second round, as all four of the teams that advanced from the all Frisco district and then District 10-5A were able to advance to the third round as well. You got a couple notes on a couple of those programs, as Heritage and Memorial were able to make good on a couple one-game series, a couple blowout wins in those. So just talk a bit about the Lady Warriors and the Lady Coyotes and what stood out in those emphatic performances.
Everything worked in their favor.
Everything stood out.
If you look at Heritage, who I saw twice in the first round, they had they like in the first round in the by district, they beat the Colony for their first ever playoff series win, and then they come in here and absolutely dominate Molina right here.
Just make more history.
Let's let the Cinderella story continue right here. So they won 7-0. Their sophomore pitcher, Jensen Hall, she had 8 strikeouts and allowed just 1 hit on the game. And obviously the offense backed her up. Kyle Lee had 3 hits. Riley Lunsford drove in 3 runs. And for Heritage, you had 11 total hits in this game. So just absolute complete domination. Obviously, it's not going to get... It's going to get a little tougher there in the next round, the regional quarterfinals. You got Lovejoy, who's going to come in.
Yeah.
So obviously that's going to be much more competitive series right there. You got game 1, Thursday at Heritage. Game 2 is Friday at Lovejoy, and if necessary, game 3 is going to be Saturday at McKinney North.
Okay.
And for Lovejoy, it was just the same deal where you just absolutely just dominate Creekview. Game 1 was 12-1. Game 2 is 17-2. So no drama there. So. But it's gonna be a heck of a series, between those two teams right there. And then obviously sticking to District 9-5A, you got Frisco Memorial, who's making its first ever playoff appearance. Mm-hmm. So they won in the by district, and then you get to the area round, and they have a 1-game playoff with Dallas Adamson. And actually, early in this game, Adamson actually took a 1-0 lead on an error, but it would
be short-lived.
It would be very, very short-lived. Memorial, I think, got a little bit ticked off about that. So they actually score 14 consecutive runs, including 8 in the bottom of the first inning right there.
Okay, well that's quite the response.
Yeah. So they score 8 runs, like I said, in the bottom of the inning. Peyton Cheney's, she had the clutch hit in that inning with a 3-run double out there that just blew the game wide open. Graceland Taylor followed with an RBI double, and in that first inning, they batted around, sent 12 batters to the plate, and that game was pretty much over with at that point. The offense, they like I said, they dominated in this game. The top 5 hitters in the batting order, they went 9 for 13 with 10 RBIs right there. Mm-hmm. Which that top 5 was Bree Gomez, J.C. Arnold, Sarah Kronschnabel, Peyton Cheney's. And, Cheney's actually had a home run in that game as well, too. So, absolute great performance by their offense. And then, Memorial went to 2 pitchers in this game. And why not? You're absolutely ahead, in this game right there. So, just, give, your starters some rest. And then, Maddie Mueller and Alexis Taylor, they combined for 9 strikeouts and allowed just 1 hit. So, great performance by them. But obviously, you move on to you're in the regional quarterfinals right now for the first time in program history, and it's going to get a little tougher. You got District 10-5A champion Rock Hill in this matchup, so it's going to be a good matchup. It's a Rock Hill offense that can score a lot of runs. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I think it's going to be a good series. You got game 1 Wednesday at Memorial, game 3 is Thursday at Rock Hill, and if necessary, game 3 is Friday at McKinney Boyd.
You have obviously that's ironic because Memorial making their first ever playoff appearance, Rock Hill in their first ever season as a varsity program. So that little nice subplot to this. Cool note for Rock Hill though. This is the Rock Hill softball team. This is the first team in school history to advance past the first round. Mm-hmm. Now they've actually been pretty consistent in getting into the playoffs lacrosse. I know volleyball got there. I believe both basketballs did as well. I think both soccers may have as well. Baseball did as well. Baseball won its first-round playoff series. But, yeah, softball was the first team in school history to make it out of the first round, and then here they are now, bound for the regional quarterfinals.
Amazing.
So, it's a good time to be playing softball in Prosper, given what the Lady Eagles are doing over at 6A, and now the Lady Blue Hawks tearing it up over in 5A. I did have one last note then before we get out of here, and it is once again going back to TAPS, as we have another team that is making its first ever trip to the state tournament, and that is John Paul II. The Lady Cardinals were able to defeat Bishop Lynch 10-6 on, I believe, Saturday. That's probably their biggest rival, I'd say. Whether it's them or Prestwood, whoever. I know that's the JP Lynch matchup is one that both programs take very, very seriously. So a nice little, obviously, means a lot to get that win there for the Lady Cardinals. They were able to get this win, though, on the strength of a 3-hit, 4 RBI game from Hannah Jackson. She had 2 doubles and a home run, so just extra base hits galore for Hannah Jackson. JP homered 3 times in this game. So in addition to Jackson, they got home runs from Sarah Lyons and Emma Rodriguez. This is now the 6th time in the last 7 games that they have scored double-digit runs. So John Paul's offense in a very good way right now. The lone exception during that stretch was the rare 0-0 tie with Ursuline back on April 26th. I was not aware that was a thing in high school baseball.
I thought they kept playing on.
In high school baseball, that you could have a tie. I thought that was exclusive to soccer and whatnot. But nevertheless, so yes, that is what is on the record. It is a 0-0 tie. And wouldn't you know it, but that's who John Paul has to play in the state semifinals. So can't have a tie at this point.
No.
Something's got to give. So those two teams hook up on Friday in Waco. John Paul won the regular season series. Those are two teams from the same district. They won the first matchup 2-0, and then the scoreless draw. So do not bank on a whole lot of offense. Probably not going to get 3 home runs in this game if the 2 matchups prior are any indication. But yes, John Paul. It's been quite the nice little athletics year for John Paul, with what the boys basketball team getting to the state semifinals, the girls soccer team getting to the state semifinals, boys soccer state runner up, and now softball headed to the state tournament for the first time ever. So some nice things happening over at JP2 over in Plano. And that's all I had. You got anything else you want to add, David? You want to get out of here?
Well, let's wrap it up with another team that's advancing in the playoffs. Saxe.
There you go. Little Garland ISD love to close things out.
Yes. So they have Tyler Legacy. Saxe plays Tyler Legacy in the area around, and they sweep the 2-game series. They get 2 quality pitching performances. They win the first game 4-3, and then they take care of Legacy to 3-1 on Saturday, and then Legacy. Saxe's going on to the next round. So great performance by Saxe.
There you go. Little love for the Mustangs on the baseball side of things to close out. So yes, that will do it for this episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Be back to recap all the fun happenings later on this week as the baseball and softball playoffs keep on rolling. So until then, folks, you take care, and we will talk to y'all later.